But me, your man, Louie T, welcome to the 2021 NFL Draft Wrap-Up Series where your man, Louie T, aims to break down all 32 teams in the National Football League's 2021 NFL Draft using our grading scale from 5 to 1. Each pick will be assessed a score, 5 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. At the end of the draft wrap-up, we will tally up all of the scores, divide by the number of picks, which will yield us an overall grade for that team's draft. This is the You Pick format, so simply be the first to leave a comment in the comment section of this and future videos in the series stating 2 things: the phrase next and the team you'd like to see next. Some examples would be Jags, next, Jags, next, Jacksonville, next, Duval, next. You get where I'm going with this. As a matter of fact, the next team up in the series is none other than the Jacksonville Jaguars, and this was a very impressive 9-player draft. As you see the 5 players selected in front of you currently as I speak, I thought this was a magnificent job of accumulating talent and really turning over this roster. This is not going to look like the Jacksonville Jaguars roster from a year ago. Trent Baalke is the new GM. He was here last year in Jacksonville, but he wasn't the GM. So Dave Caldwell he got fired during this season. Baalke stepped in as the interim general manager. He is now the official general manager, given that title by new Jaguars head coach Urban Meyer. And if there is anyone in the NFL that currently knows college players, it's Urban Meyer, a guy that has been watching these players for quite some time. He's been doing work for Fox, watching these players blossom, and him being a college coach his entire career, he knows what good athletes look like. And that's what they've essentially acquired in this draft, is a bunch of really quality athletes. So I think they've done it the right way here. Now we're going to see if, the vision that they have for this roster comes to fruition rather quickly, because again, along with the Houston Texans, I don't think there's 2 teams with a higher turnover in terms of roster than Jacksonville and Houston. And so Jacksonville turns this roster over with all this talent. Let's break down what they were able to get in the 2021 NFL Draft. And so we kick this off starting in the first round. First overall pick, the Jaguars owned the number 1 pick overall. Obviously, they spent it on quarterback Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson. At 6'6", 220, they got themselves the prototypical NFL quarterback in today's NFL. This guy can run. He's got a big arm. He came to the NFL with a pedigree for winning. He did it in his freshman year at Clemson, and really that's all he did his entire career. This is what you're looking for when you draft an NFL quarterback. I think there are some things that should worry you, but they're all coachable and fixable. So, I've already broken down Trevor Lawrence, so I'm not going to do that here. What I will do is read my my quick synopsis of Trevor Lawrence and what he brings to the table. If you're looking for the thorough breakdown of Trevor Lawrence, I will leave the link to that in the comment section of this video, and I will pin it as the comment that will be at the top, so you'll be able to access him and any other players that I was able to get to prior to the draft. That said, with Trevor Lawrence, tall, lanky, natural athlete whose ability to play the quarterback position is only matched by his ability to win. Lawrence displays the ability to pick apart defenses with pinpoint accuracy or leggy, deceptive speed. When things break down, he doesn't panic, but rather calmly manipulates the pocket with steady feet and poised eyes. At times, he will stare down receivers and can be loose with the ball when under siege. Still, he's unflappable and unfazed when the pressure is on, and is a massive reason why he was 34-2 as a starter and led his team to the national championship game twice in 3 years, with one of them being a win. So my comp for him is Justin Herbert. He looks just like Herbert in terms of his size. I think Herbert has a bigger, liver arm, but athleticism, size, all of those traits that you look for, they look just like Justin Herbert. And to me, that's who he comps to at this moment. And, it's funny because I wasn't a Justin Herbert fan coming into the draft, and I make it known that I wasn't a Justin Herbert fan. I knew he was toolsy, and I talked about him having all the tools, but I wasn't a massive fan of his. But look at what he did in his rookie season. And if Trevor Lawrence can do the things that Justin Herbert was able to do in his rookie season, as a Jaguars fan, you're in good hands for a very long time if he continues to do the things that he did so well for the Clemson Tigers, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So this is a guy that I really like. I don't think he was better than Joe Burrow from a year ago, but I think he was really good and a guy that you really feel confident can get it done at the next level. Trevor Lawrence, for me, this is a no-brainer. You guys know what time it is. He's a 5. This is a slam dunk pick. I felt like Trevor Lawrence, skill set wise, was the number 2 quarterback in this draft. But if you're looking at the overall body of work, I don't think there's any way he's not your number 1 guy, and I don't see how you don't take him number 1, and the Jaguars did exactly that. You go to the second pick for the Jaguars. We're still in the first round, however. 25th pick overall. Running back out of Clemson, Travis Etienne is the selection. This is a guy that, frankly, looks the part of a dominant NFL running back. And Urban Meyer already said that he envisions him filling the Percival Harvin role that Percy Harvin had at Florida when he was one of the most dominant college football players we've ever seen. And if Travis Etienne can even be a quarter of what Percival Harvin was at Florida, then Travis Etienne is going to change the game. And so I don't know if he's Percival Harvin. I don't see that necessarily, but that's the role that Urban Meyer envisions for him. I just know they took the 2 best players off of the Clemson roster and deposited them onto the Jacksonville Jaguars roster, which makes the Jaguars that much better. And this is a guy that could have come out last year, and honestly, I think he would have been a first-round pick. He went back to school, and he's a first-round pick. He's so dependable. He's so good, and he got better at certain things that I think really make you excited and encouraged if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan. So quickly, we'll gloss over these numbers. You're talking about a 5'10", 215-pound back, but you see listed in front of you 210. Some of the weights and the heights will be a little off. I did the artwork prior to no combine this year, remember, so a lot of these pro days were a little bit later on in the process. I had already done the artwork. I wasn't going back and changing it, so some of the artwork is off in terms of the weight and the height. Not by much, but some of them may be off. But, you know, what's interesting here is Travis Etienne, he played his college football at around 208 to 210. That was his playing weight. He showed up at the Clemson Pro Day at 215 to show scouts he could weigh more, and he ran a little bit slower. And there are people that are saying, hey, I would like him to take that weight back off and be the dynamic 4-3 back that we saw at Clemson and not the 4-4, one guy that we saw at the Pro Day, which we're splitting hairs. But, 4-4-1 could be the difference between, a 4-3-7 corner from the opposite side of the field catching you versus that guy not being able to track you down. Look, if you're running 4-4-1, man, there aren't going to be many guys catching you from behind at the next level, simply put. So we'll see if he decides to shed that 5 pounds of muscle that he put on, or if he says, you know what, I don't need that extra armor. I'm going to go back to my college playing weight and be a little bit faster. We'll see what happens. But anyway, I digress. His career numbers look like this. 55 games for the senior, Travis Etienne, 686 carries for 4,952 yards. So almost 5,000 yards rushing in his career. He left the ACC as its all-time leading rusher. That's how prolific this guy was throughout his career. 7.13 yards per tote for 70 total touchdowns. So the collegiate production is off the charts. Here's one of the departments he got significantly better. As his career progressed, he got better and better and became a larger and larger portion of the receiving game. 102 career receptions for 1,255 yards and 8 touchdowns. And he saw an uptick in production each and every single year from a reception and yards standpoint. Every year in his career, it went up, and it took an astronomical jump from his sophomore to junior year, and then it climbed even further in his senior year. So this is a guy that has become so developed as a pass catcher, and that wasn't necessarily the case early in his career. His strengths: speed and acceleration. Speed! You know what time it is when you see Travis Etienne and he gets a lane and he gets to the second level. Forget about it. You're not catching this guy from behind. And there's a burst there. There's an acceleration that I go back to the 2019 playoff game against Ohio State in the semifinals, where Clemson was down late in that ball game, and they got the football to Travis Etienne on I want to say it was a screen pass. It might have been right early stages of the second half. Get it to him on a screen, and he takes off, he scores, and then late in the game they were down and they gave it to Etienne, and he just raced past everybody. It was almost like he had a different gear than everybody else on the football field. It was ridiculous, and that's the kind of acceleration that this guy brings to the table. Agility. His fluidity is second to none. His cuts are smooth, they're seamless. They transition from one to the next without him having to stop or break stride. He's got outstanding COD, change of direction. So this is a guy that, agility-wise, he's a can't miss in terms of being able to do it at a high level. And that's why I'm anxious to see how teams defend him and how he's used in Jacksonville, because the guy that I'm comparing him to, if they use him in that regard, in that way, it's going to be hard for NFL defenses to stop this guy because of his agility, speed, and acceleration, all the things we've talked about to this point. Contact balance. To me, I've said this so many times. I'm going to continue to say this because, there are little things that everyone, people that watch players that are evaluators, which I don't consider myself to be. I just watch these players on film and give you my analysis. But when I watch players, there are certain things I look for, and these things that I look for may not be the same things that you watching that same exact player look for or type of player look for. I look at certain things with running backs. I look at certain things with receivers and tight ends and things of that nature, quarterbacks. And you might be looking at something totally different. And that's how it is when you're watching players and evaluating players. You value things differently. We all do. One of the things I value greatly, probably more so than most people who evaluate running backs, is contact balance. To me, if you want to take that next step, look, vision is awesome and it's a great tool to have. And I hope you have that. That's one of the tools that I think separates you as a running back. Patience is another thing that you would love your backs to have, knowing when to be patient and when to explode through the hole, things of that nature. But to me, contact balance is one of those traits that either you have or you don't have. You can't coach contact balance. Either you have the ability to take contact and stay on your feet, or you don't and get yards after contact. Alvin Kamara, for me, is the best in the league at contact balance. And that's why I told anybody that would listen the year that he was drafted, he's a first-round talent. You see what he's done to this point. Christian McCaffrey has outstanding contact balance. Dalvin Cook has contact balance. When we start naming the best running backs in football, all of them have a common thread. Yeah, they're fast. Yep, they can scoot. Yep, they have good vision and they have patience and all of those things. They can make you miss out in space. All of those are great tools to have, but a lot of times they get contacted below the waist and they keep their balance and are able to continue to rumble for more yards after contact. And to me, that's the difference. Travis Etienne is the best in this particular draft at contact balance. And you know what? I take that back. I think Najee Harris may have better contact balance than him. However, they're neck and neck. Quality vision. He's got good vision. He sees the field very well, sees cutback lanes and is able to exploit them. So that's a good trait to have. You can't be a first-round back without quality vision. You just can't. Sorry, that's a prerequisite. Receiving ability. In today's NFL, I think, and this is another thing I think you have to be able to do to be a first-round back, which is why I think Jonathan Taylor ultimately wasn't a first-round back, is you got to catch it out of the backfield. And we need to see visual evidence of this. There needs to be empirical proof that you can catch the football. Travis Etienne, over the last 2 years of his career, proved that he could be a dynamic pass catcher out of the backfield. And I think that's what elevated and catapulted him to a first-round pick. Without it, I don't think he's selected in the first round. There are so many guys that have come into this league that can run and have speed, but they couldn't catch the football. And I think with today's NFL, with the running back being that fifth eligible and teams looking to exploit linebackers and defenders out in space with their running backs, it's a new world out there. It's a brave new world. And if your running back can catch the football, it adds another dimension to your offense. And he's one of those guys that can catch it out of the backfield, much like Najee Harris, which is why those two were selected in the first round of this draft. Travis Etienne can catch the football out of the backfield, and he's dynamic in that regard. Durability and college productivity. I talked about the productivity, which is off the charts, but you can't be that productive if you're not in the lineup week in, week out. And this is a guy that just simply did not miss games, was extremely durable for the Clemson Tigers. And that's something you also have to love if you're the Jacksonville Jaguars. Weaknesses. Like, I'm nitpicking with this guy because there aren't a ton of things that you really are down on Travis Etienne about. However, he can be a bit hasty attacking the line of scrimmage. At times, he lacks the patience that you look for when pressing the line of scrimmage. He sees a hole that he thinks is there. He goes to attack it instead of pressing the line of scrimmage and continuing to press until that hole opens up. He thinks he sees something and it's closed up quickly. And instead of him getting maybe 5 or 6 yards, if he's able to turn the corner, he cuts it back and he gets a gain of 1 or 2. So sometimes it can be a bit hasty. Again, I'm nitpicking here, you know. And then finally, I think this is the biggest weakness that he has right now that he has to clean up. And he's gotten better. I can acknowledge this. When you watch the 2019 tape versus the 2020 tape, there's a significant increase in his ability to pass protect. However, he's still spotty. But coming from where he was in 2019, where he was a liability on the field in pass protection, to now, at least you feel like there's a workable place to start. In 2019, if you were to take him, and I think that was part of the reason he went back to school. In 2019, if you would have drafted this guy, he couldn't play on third downs because it was impossible to get him up to speed fast enough. He was so bad in pass protection. In 2020, I thought he was a lot better, but he was so bad in 19 that even being a lot better still means he's got a long way to go. That said, it's not as bad as it once was, but it still needs work. So pass protection for me would be the single biggest thing if I were Travis Etienne that I would work on this offseason as I prepare to try to help the Jacksonville Jaguars in my rookie campaign. That said, my player comp for him is Alvin Kamara. I just see a lot of those same traits in Travis Etienne. I think he's a lot faster than Kamara was coming out of Tennessee. That said, I see a lot of the same qualities here in Travis Etienne, the ability to catch it, the ability to make guys miss, the ability to have that acceleration at the second level, the ability to have that contact balance, to take contact, to remain on your feet, and continue to get yards afterwards. We'll see if he's able to fill that Percival Harvin void that Nick, about to call him Nick Saban, that Urban Meyer, my guy Herb, is looking for him to fill. But I love this pick. You know, it's crazy. I didn't think it was going to happen because I thought James Robinson was fantastic last year, but he's a different back. You know, he's your power. He's your thunder. Travis Etienne is going to be your lightning. And in the first round, 25th pick overall, Travis Etienne, running back out of Clemson, for me is a 5. I absolutely love this pick. And again, your first 2 picks are the 2 best players on arguably one of the better rosters in all of college football. You'll take that all day long, all day strong. As we get to your 3rd pick in this draft, 2nd round, 33rd pick overall, defensive back out of Georgia, Tyson Campbell is the pick. This is a guy that is 6'1", 193 is what he weighed in at his pro day at Georgia. So not 6'2", 185, but 6'1", a buck 93. I actually liked him better than his counterpart on the opposite side, that in Eric Stokes. A lot of people liked Stokes. I was a Tyson Campbell guy. I thought he was the better of the 2 corners, and so I was pushing for Campbell to go off the board first, and I think you got the better of the 2 Georgia Bulldog corners, honestly. Now, there are some things that Tyson Campbell has to clean up. We'll talk about those things here in a second. However, let's go over his numbers real quick. 33 career games, 89 tackles. 4 of them are tackles for loss. He's got 1 forced fumble and a fumble recovery that was a scoop and score. So being around the football, always a positive. 10 pass breakups, and 1 INT. And that's the glaring knock on Tyson Campbell for me, is the ball production. And we'll talk about that a little bit more as we get into his breakdown. However, let me give you my synopsis for what Tyson Campbell is as a football player, and then we'll talk a little bit more about him. Tyson Campbell is a pure athlete. 6'1", long and rangy, running anywhere in the 4.37 to 4.4 flat range. Campbell's problem isn't keeping pace with receivers, but rather making a play when the ball gets there. Campbell's 1 career interception is a reflection of a player that has all the skills and attributes of an NFL starter, but lacking in the playmaking department. His ability to click and close and drive on underneath routes, coupled with his short area quickness and burst, give Campbell the necessary tools to get the job done at all 3 levels. But making plays on the ball is something that Campbell must become more consistent at in order to maximize his value at the next level. So when watching him on tape, the thing that jumped out at me was he's always in the picture. He's always there. It's never a question of, is this guy in phase? Is he able to stay with the receiver? He's always there. His problem is locating the ball and making a play on the ball. He doesn't look back enough, and you know how I am about being an LLCer. Look, locate, and contest. If you're a cornerback, to me, those are essentials. I can't love you as a corner if you're not an LLCer, because that means a lot of times you're face guarding and you're not finding the football. And with his skill set, he should always be confident. And to me, guys that aren't LLCers aren't confident in their ability. That's what that says to me, because if you're confident in your coverage, you're looking back for the football, because in your mind, you're thinking, I got every right to this ball just like this receiver does. And I've done the work already. I'm right here in the hip pocket of this receiver. If he's looking back for the rock, or I think it's coming right now, then I'm looking back for it and I'm looking to make a play on it. I'm not just looking to be in the way and be a hindrance. I'm looking to make a play on the ball. And Tyson Campbell is okay right now with just being a hindrance, making it tough on a receiver to catch it. He's not looking to actually make a play and make a quarterback pay for making a mistake in his direction. If the sooner he gets to a position where he's comfortable and confident and looking back for the football, I think this guy could be an animal, because he's got everything and he's always right there. He just has to look for the ball. My comp for him is William Jackson III. And remember what he was coming into the league. He was raw and a guy that needed a little bit of polish, was rough around the edges coming out of Houston. And look what he's matured into, one of the league's better cornerbacks. I see a lot of the same qualities, same size, same speed and athleticism, a lot of the same qualities. Only thing different was William Jackson came into the NFL with ball skills. I think he's last year at Houston, he might have had like 4 or 5 picks. That's not Tyson Campbell, but I think that could be Tyson Campbell with a little bit of polish. So I love this pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. I thought this guy was a fringe first rounder. To get him at the top of the second round is right around where I thought he would go. And so in the second round, 33rd overall pick, cornerback out of Georgia, Tyson Campbell for me is a 4. Really like this pick by the Jacksonville Jaguars. You couple him with the corner you took last year in C.J. Henderson, super intelligent C.J. Henderson, and all of a sudden now, if those guys develop and mature the way that you intend them to, you could have 2 long playmaking corners on the outside in Jacksonville, similar to when you had A.J. Boye and Jalen Ramsey. You get to the next pick in the draft for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're still in the second round, 45th pick overall. Offensive tackle out of Stanford, Walker Little is the pick. 6'7", 313, not 309 is the weight. So 313 stands Walker Little. And this is a guy that is very intriguing because he was all over the board for a lot of evaluators. You know, just on the tape alone, you're probably talking about a first-round pick. But because of no football in essentially 2 calendar years, by the time the beginning of the 2021 season rolls around, you're talking about 2 calendar years in which Walker Little has not played a snap of competitive, meaningful football. He'll probably get some snaps in the preseason, but meaningful games that actually count, you're talking about essentially 2 calendar years that have gone by with Walker Little not playing competitive football. And that's a problem for some people and hard for them to get past. But if you are able to get past that, here's what you're getting. Walker Little, if not for the torn ACL in the second game of the 2019 college football season, probably would have been a slam dunk first round pick. In 2017, Little became the first Stanford Cardinal to start as a true freshman at left tackle in 2 decades and was an all Pac-12 performer in his freshman year. He did it again in 2018 and was destined for first round status until he got injured the second game of his junior season. What makes Little a potential first round talent is his prototypical size, as we see at 6'7", his length, 33 3/4 inch arms. So essentially, I round that up to 34-inch arms, which is what you're looking for at the tackle position. And athleticism. This is a guy that can move. When you watch him on tape, that's the thing that jumped out at me the most. This is a guy that can get out in front of screens. It's a guy that can be that kick out block on a slip screen or something close around the line of scrimmage. He's got that kind of ability and movement skills. As a pass protector, he looks the part. Typewriter feet, outstanding redirect, and length to wash defenders around the pocket. Can get out in front of screens and be the kick out on slips and bubbles. While Walker Little has size, it doesn't necessarily translate into power in the run game, however. He's not a man mover, but more of what I like to call a barrier blocker, meaning he creates a barrier in between man and ball. So defender and whoever is carrying the football, Walker Little steps in between and says, he's going this way, you need to go that way. But he doesn't move guys physically like, hey, he's going to go that way. He just gets in the way. And if that back is either able to slither through, you got yourself, a little bit of a gain there. But he's not going to take that defender and create a new line of scrimmage. But he gets the job done. And that's essentially what it boils down to. It's not like he's getting his ass kicked in the run game. He's just not dominant in the run game. If the medical checks out, Little could be a steal for a tackle-needy team in the 2021 NFL Draft. And I think that's essentially what happened here. I was hoping he would get to the 3rd round to Washington, or at least to Washington's 2nd round pick. And I think if he were there, they would have taken him. Washington was looking for a tackle. They ended up taking a tackle some 6 picks later in Samuel Cosmi. So I think Walker Little was on their radar, but the Jaguars did the smart thing. They snatched him up, and he's ready to go. This is a guy that worked out at the Stanford Pro Day. He's 100%, and he hasn't played since 2019, September of 2019, tore his ACL, and then he opted out due to COVID, and so he hasn't played football in 2 years. So you still don't really know what you're getting, but if you go back to the tape and you rely on that, and much hasn't changed from a technique standpoint, you're getting a pretty damn good offensive tackle, if I may say so myself. So I think this is a fantastic pickup here in the 2nd round, 45th pick overall. Stanford offensive tackle Walker Little for me is a 4. This is a phenomenal pick. I mean, I don't know what else you want me to say other than this is fantastic value at the time of the draft you're getting him. I was hoping he would have lasted a little bit longer, but I knew better than that. I knew someone was going to take this guy because he's too good of a football player to be sitting there late stages of the 2nd into the 3rd round. Someone was going to take him, and it's not like you're not going to be able to benefit from Walker Little in his rookie season. He didn't tear his ACL during the last season and could potentially be out or on the PUP list. This guy's ready to go right now. There was no way he was going to last past where he did, and so this is a good pickup for the Jacksonville Jaguars. We get to their next selection, the 5th in this 9-player draft. 3rd round, 65th overall selection, safety out of Syracuse. Andre Cisco is the pick. Talking about guys coming off of injury, here's another one. This is another value pick, another guy that was on my radar as a Washington fan. He was on my radar, and I actually mocked him to Washington in the 3rd round, and Washington, I think, was very interested in Andre Cisco. So this is another really good pick by Jacksonville. Let's talk about Andre Cisco. So first and foremost, he's 6'1", 216, not 6 feet 203. So That's something we want to get straight right away. Now, could he be more along the lines of 208, 210, something like that, and he only gained that weight because, he's rehabbing from an injury? Sure, that could be the case. Absolutely. However, he's 6'1", so he's a little bit bigger, and he's an athlete. Let's go over his numbers quickly, and then we'll get into his quick breakdown. So 24 games for Andre Cisco, and so his 2020 season was cut short due to an injury. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But 136 tackles, 2 of them for losses, 2 forced fumbles, 16 pass breakups, and 13 interceptions, including 1 for a touchdown. That's the number that stands out. You won't find anybody in this draft with more gaudy numbers in the interception department. This guy is a ball hawk in every sense of the word. He's a playmaker and the kind of guy that is a feast or famine defender, which we will talk about. But he did a lot of feasting in the ACC for the Orange. That is for sure. And the 13 interceptions bear that out. Andre Cisco is a feast or famine safety that has the ability to be a breakout, a back-end eraser that teams covet, making play after play on the football, totaling 13 interceptions in just 24 games. Understand that that's almost a half of interception, a little over, almost 0.75 interceptions per game. And I know that's not a real number, but you're getting close to almost an interception per game. That's an insane amount of interceptions. You hear 13 interceptions. Okay, he probably played in 47 games. No, he played in 24 games. Okay, just let that sink in for a second. Coupled with his size and range, Cisco has all the attributes to be a difference maker in the secondary. However, while the ball skills are off the charts, so is Cisco's penchant for being a risk taker that freelances and can be manipulated by deception of quarterback eyes and play action fake, which can lead to big plays by the offense. Also, Cisco can be spotty as a tackler and filler at times, but his upside is intriguing and the ball skills are undeniable. Another hiccup for Cisco is the torn ACL he suffered in a freak accident in the pregame before his team's third contest of the 2020 season. He went up for a football, and one of his teammates wasn't looking. He was tracking a ball. They crashed into each other. Cisco is in the air at the time of the collision. He tears his ACL in mid-air. His health, discipline, and growth as a player will be tied to his longevity and success in the NFL as a player. So he's got a lot of growing to do, but the things he needs to get better at, I think, are all coachable. There are things that he can get better at with more film study, more time in the film room, and more drilling from a coaching staff that's on this guy about the finer points of the game and the intricate details. Some of this stuff is eye discipline and just eyes not being in the right place. And some of the poor angles that he takes some pretty poor pursuit angles when coming down and filling, and he can over pursue on plays and not fill his run gaps effectively and efficiently. He'll miss some tackles. He's not the most formed tackle guy. He'll throw his body around, but it doesn't always result in the running back or the ball carrier finding the ground. So there are little things he can shore up, but they're all coachable offenses. They're all things that you can coach him up on. And that's why I'm intrigued, because what you can't teach are the ball skills. Either you have that or you don't. You're not going to come into the NFL as a guy with 1 interception a lot of times at the safety position I'm speaking of. Now, at cornerback position, you might have tremendous ball skills and just not locate, like the guy you drafted in the second round, at the top of the second round, Tyson Campbell. I think he's got tremendous skills and could turn into a ball hawk, but he just can't find the football. As a safety, you're looking at the quarterback 9 times out of 10. You're looking at the entirety of the field. So you have an opportunity to see where the ball is going and make a play on it. If you don't have a ton of interception, if you don't have a ton of ball production as a safety, it's generally because you're not in the right place at the right time. Andre Cisco finds himself in the right place at the right time so often. Now, again, some of it is him guessing. Some of it is reading the quarterback's eyes. And if you have negligent eyes as a quarterback and you're staring it down, you're going to take Andre Cisco right to the ball and he's going to make you pay. But if you're one of these quarterbacks that knows you want to go backside and you're staring down the front side to take a guy away from the action, Andre Cisco will bite the bait. So there needs to be a happy medium, and Jacksonville needs to rein him in a bit, but not so much that they muzzle him and take away the thing that makes him such an intriguing prospect, which is his playmaking ability. But all in all, I'm high on Andre Cisco. And my comp for him is Justin Simmons, who to me is one of the best safeties in all of football. He has that type of ability. He's got to clean up some of the tackling things, which I think right now is the biggest question mark I have outside of the injury concerns. Obviously, you want to see this guy get healthy. He's running around right now, but he's not 100%. Don't know if he'll be ready for training camp. He's aiming to be ready, and the good thing about his injury is that it happened so early last season that he may ultimately be ready by the time training camp starts. What you don't want to do is rush this kid. You want him to get healthy because he could be a key contributor for you down the road. And so in the third round, 65th pick overall, safety out of Syracuse, Andre Cisco for me is a 3. If this guy were healthy, if he would have already been able to run a 40 and I knew I could count on this guy to be ready for camp, this is probably a 4. But because I'm not quite sure and I don't know what post-injury Andre Cisco looks like, it's a 3. But I'm so high on this guy, I really think you got yourself one hell of a football player in Andre Cisco. We are now into the 4th round, 106th overall selection. Defensive lineman out of USC, Tufele is the pick. And Tufele, for me, is a disruptor in every sense of the word. The numbers and the production aren't going to jump out and bite you. But when you watch him on tape, this guy is always around the action. Now, he picked up a bunch of penalties, some avoidable, some I thought were ticky-tack while hitting the quarterback. But that said, this guy's a big ball of energy that's going to be a disruptor if you allow him to be what he's supposed to be, which is a one-gap penetrator. That said, 6'2", 305 stands Tufele, and these are his numbers real quick. 25 games. He opted out of 2020, so you got to go back to 2019 to watch him be disruptive. 11 tackles for loss, including 7.5 sacks, which is a really good number for an interior defensive lineman. 1 pass breakup, 1 blocked kick in his career, and a recovered fumble that he scooped and scored. So this guy is an athlete as well. Speaking of which, his strengths, athleticism and get off in short area bursts. This is a guy that can track plays down from behind. He's not one of these defenders that you can on the backside loaf on and he won't get in there as a defensive tackle. If this run is going away from him and that running back is pressing the hole, pressing, and he's looking for that cutback lane, Tufele will track him down from the backside if that guard on the backside doesn't get a piece of him to stop him from getting there. He's got that kind of burst. He has that kind of motor to track a play down from behind. He's got a tremendous get off. When the ball is snapped, he comes off of the line in the snap like a banshee screaming out of hell. And he's got the athleticism that you get excited about for a big guy on the interior of your defensive line. He ran a 4.97. Okay, anything under 5 flat for a 300-pound man is exquisite. So this guy is definitely an athlete for sure. Violent hands and shedding capabilities. So one of the first things I noticed watching him on tape was his hands. They're violent. They're heavy. They have shock in them. And they create movement when he puts them on grown men that are 300 pounds plus. So you get movement from Tufele when he gets his hands extended and fires those things off. Guys backpedal a bit and they move. Ground is given. So that's the first thing I noticed. His hands are extremely violent. So when he chops down at that offensive guard's hands to swim, that guy isn't going to just keep his hands there. Like he doesn't have, if you don't have that G.I. Joe Kung Fu grip, he's going to slap your hands down and he's going to find the edge. So he also has shedding capabilities. And so he can stack and shed, and when the ball carrier arrives, make a tackle. And that's something that I always enjoy watching defensive linemen do, especially the guys on the inside. A lot of these guys don't see the ball a lot of times. And Tufele falls into that category. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But when he does see the football, he knows what's going on. He's a guy that definitely can discard an offensive lineman and get to the ball carrier. Constantly searching for edges. That's what you love to see with defensive tackles in particular, because a lot of times these guys get really comfortable just eating up space, as rushers especially. They're not searching for the edge. They're not constantly looking to try to work around that offensive lineman. They're comfortable playing pity pat, standing right in front of that guy and waiting for the quarterback to try to throw the football and then jump in the air and bat it down. Tufele isn't one of those dudes. He's constantly searching for the edge, searching for a way around that offensive lineman so that he can get into the backfield and be a nuisance, which is what he does best. He's very disruptive against outside zone. If you want a great example of that, turn on the 2019 tape against Oregon. He was dominant in that game. He had about 3 hits on quarterback Justin Herbert, 1 sack. Those other 2 hits on Herbert, I think, resulted in personal foul penalties, but I thought one of them was really soft and ticky-tack. But nonetheless, he's an outside zone snuffing machine. Anything on the outside, he does a great job of playing in front of blocks and getting around that guy, finding the edge and finding the ball carrier. Anything other than outside zone, we'll get to that a little bit later on in the breakdown. Powerful with ability to collapse pocket. He's one of those guys that I didn't see him use the bull rush a ton, but I know just watching him, if he tries to bull rush a little bit more, I think he could be very effective in that regard. Now, one of the things he doesn't have is long arms, so the bull rush could get stunted by a long arm tackle that's able to give him a stiff, stern punch that keeps him at bay. But if he's able to get into the chest of that offensive lineman, look out. He's got the ability to collapse the pocket. He's very, very strong. 3-down potential. A lot of these guys you see as defensive tackles, I just see them as 2-down, plotters, guys that help you stop the run, and then you got to get them off the field on 3rd and long because they're not getting to the quarterback. I think there's actually a potential for Tufele to get to the quarterback. Like when I watch him, I see a guy that could potentially end the season. You look up and he's got 6.5, 7 sacks as an interior defensive lineman, which is phenomenal. You'll take that in the NFL every single year, especially for a guy that you draft in the 4th round. You're not expecting him to produce that kind of, sack totals, but I think he's got the potential to do that, So I do see, 3-down potential. He's going to have to refine his pass rushing ability, however. He's not ready to just be a dominant force on 3rd downs, but I think the potential is there. And then high motor, I talked about that already. His motor just does not stop. While he's on the field, he's going 1,000,000 miles per second, and that's the only way he knows how to go. And truly, for a 300-pounder, you love it. You love to see it. Weaknesses. Struggles to identify or adjust what the offense is doing, how he's being blocked, essentially, is what I'm saying. He struggles to identify blocking schemes in a nutshell. I told you, outside zone, he's dominant against it. But inside zone, power plays to the inside, he struggles in what the offense is trying to do. Sometimes he's jumping around blocks. Well, that offensive lineman will invite you to jump outside of the block because essentially what you've done now is you've opened up a hole right where the ball is coming. So that guy's going to make you feel like you're winning, and he's just going to pin you where you're going, and now there's a big hole there. So, there are times where he needs to be a little bit more adept at what's being done to him and what the offense is trying to do. I've read in places that he just simply doesn't need to be bogged down with having to think. Just let this guy go. Just send him up the field, one gap, let him penetrate, and let him be a disruptor. And the guy that I comp him to, I felt the exact same way about him. And looking at the body type and the way they play, I feel like they're the exact same player. Doesn't always find the ball. I talked about, guys on the defensive line putting their head down and playing blindly and not knowing where the ball is. And Tufele is guilty of that at times, where he'll just put his head down and be like a bull in a china shop, has absolutely no clue where the football is. Guy could run right by him, and then he'll look up and, oh, man, there he goes. I could have had him. he's got to see where the action is and know where the ball is at all times. You can't be an effective player if you're just chasing and you have no idea what you're chasing. You could be chasing a fake. If you're not paying attention, you're running 5 yards laterally in the wrong direction. The play is going in the opposite direction. You have to see where the ball is, and he doesn't always do that. Gets his shoulders too far in front of his toes too often. So there's a play against Oregon, as a matter of fact. His sack against Oregon, as I go back to that game again, came on a play where he's stumbling. His shoulders are too far in front of his toes. The offensive lineman slaps him down. He's now stumbling, but he's able to stumble right into Justin Herbert for a sack. 9 times out of 10, that's not going to be the end result of a play in which your shoulders are too far out in front of your toes. 9 times out of 10, you're going to end up on your belly with a 300-plus pound guy on your back, pancaking you. He's got to be more disciplined with his weight distribution. Your shoulders and your head can't be way out in front of your toes because you're off balance at that point. And any contact from an offensive lineman at that point will be enough to send you to the turf. He's got to find a way to be better in his balance as a rusher. Needs more pass rush refinery. And I talked about that already. In order for him to maximize his value, he needs to come up with a better rush plan. Right now, he's just rushing up the field and seeking out edges. And every now and again, getting off the snap in a hurry and winning with a quick swim. However, that's not going to be good enough against NFL caliber guards and centers and tackles. He's going to have to be better in how he goes about trying to pursue the quarterback. And that's where coaching comes into play. And this guy's raw. Tufele is. You get the most out of him, and you could have yourself a beast here in the 4th round. And because of that, my comp for him is Ricky Jean Francois, a guy that I always looked at as a one-gap penetrating menace in his career. You just turn him loose. You don't bog him down with thinking. Don't ask him to two-gap. Don't ask him to read what they're doing. Just get in the backfield and make a play. And if you can't do that, okay, fine. But that's all I wanted Ricky Jean Francois to do. He was so good at it. He'd be in the backfield constantly. Didn't always make the play, but constantly in the backfield. And there were times where he'd be back there and he'd miss, or he'd get back there and they'd run it right where he came from. And that's a problem. But at the same time, know your personnel, know who you're dealing with. And I think Jay Tufele is another one of those types of players. Bottom line is, really solid football player that I like here in the 4th round, 106 pick overall. Defensive tackle out of USC, Jay Tufele for me is a 3. You get to the next pick in the 4th round, Jaguars with a ton of picks in the first 4 rounds, 7 to be exact. 121st pick overall, edge rusher out of UAB, Jordan Smith is the pick. I've already done a thorough breakdown of Jordan Smith, so I'm not going to do that here. However, you can find the link to the breakdown in the comment section along with the Trevor Lawrence breakdown as well. Both of those will be pinned in a comment in this video. However, I will give you my analysis for Jordan Smith quickly before we move on. Jordan Smith had a unique path to UAB. Starting out at Florida, Smith was one of 9 players suspended for his role in an alleged credit card fraud scheme. That landed him in a JUCO before transferring to UAB and dominating. At 6'6", with a tremendous wingspan that he is well aware of and good overall athleticism, Smith had an outstanding 2019 season and followed that up with a solid 2020 campaign that has him on the cusp of being drafted on probably one of the first 2 days of the NFL draft. Smith is most comfortable in a 2-point stance, which probably suits him for an odd man front as an outside linebacker. He's still raw, and pass rush plan is a work in progress, but he's toolsy, long, athletic, and a slab of moldable clay with tons of upside. And just to give you my comp, and you'll see that on the breakdown, I comped him to Leonard Floyd. They've got a similar body type and a similar way of playing. I think Smith is a lot bigger than what Leonard Floyd was coming into the league, But I called Leonard Floyd Gumby when he came into the league because of his ability to bend, and I see some of those traits with Jordan Smith. I had fun watching his tape. I think there's a lot of talent here. Go watch his breakdown if you want a full, thorough analysis of his play and film. But for me, in the fourth round, 121st pick overall, edge rusher Jordan Smith for me is a 3. I really like this pick. I was intrigued by Jordan Smith, and I'm not saying he can't put his hand in the dirt. He can definitely put his hand in the dirt and rush, but he looked a lot more comfortable in a 2-point stance. So it'll be interesting to see what Jacksonville does with Jordan Smith. And not to say you can't be in a base 4-3 and have your guy stand up. That's not what you want. Low man wins in the NFL, which is why you don't want your edge rushers standing up in a 4-3 base defense. That said, I look at a guy like Chase Young, who was more comfortable rushing from a 2-point stance. He rushed a ton from a 2-point stance last year in a base 4-3 defense. That's not what your defensive coordinator wants you to do, however. Wants you to be low because, again, low man wins in the NFL. We'll see what Jacksonville does with Jordan Smith. I think he's a big slab of moldable clay, and if you're able to maximize his talents, you could get yourself a double-digit sack getter in Jordan Smith. You get to the 5th round, 145th pick overall. Tight end out of Ohio State, Luke Farrell is the pick. 6'5", 251 stands Luke Farrell. This is a guy that played in 45 games at Ohio State, only 34 catches for 376 yards and 4 touchdowns. Not a lot of production, but that to me is more so a byproduct of the Ohio State quarterbacks simply not looking for the quarterback, the tight end, specifically Justin Fields. In his junior or sophomore year with Dwayne Haskins still at Ohio State, Luke Farrell had his best season with 20 catches and 205 yards. However, with Justin Fields there, he just totaled 12 catches over the last 2 years. So he wasn't looking for the tight end. And frankly, when you got skill guys that are wide open down the field, why would you look for the tight end? So I think he can be more of a producer in the pass game, but not by much. He's not a dominant athlete that just needs opportunities. Where his counterpart at Ohio State, I was drooling all over him to come out, and he decided to go back to school. Might have been a great choice because if he balls out like I think he's capable of doing, I think he could be a first-round pick in Jeremy Ruckert. But Luke Farrell, on the other hand, isn't the athlete that Jeremy Ruckert is. And so I think he is what I'm about to tell you he is. So Luke Farrell is a quintessential third tight end or TE3 in the NFL. Proficient blocker, lacks high-end athleticism and speed, but is functional in that area and can catch the football when tossed in his direction. Farrell appears to be more resourceful in the pass-catching department upon further study, as Ohio State simply neglected the tight end position in the pass game. However, Farrell isn't a vertical field stretcher, nor is he a one-on-one separator. Still, he has good feel for soft spots in zone coverage, has experience lining up in multiple locations in the formation, whether it's flex, inline, wing, or H-back, and has very soft hands. And he's capable of fulfilling any blocking responsibility adequately. Don't get it twisted. He's not a dominant blocker by any stretch of the imagination, but he is very competent, and I think he's capable of executing any block you ask him to. I don't think he sustains as well as you would like him to, but he's able to make initial contact, and that's something they'll have to work on with him in terms of sustaining blocks without holding. That said, he's a TE3 all day long. Like, he'll have a role in this league. He's not anybody's tight end 2, however. He should not be a TE2 for anybody. I thought Jacksonville should have drafted a tight end sooner in the draft. They decided to go with a TE3 type, and they may be happy with some of the guys they have on the roster. That said, my player comp for Luke Farrell is Garrett Selleck, a former TE type 3 guy in the league with the 49ers. His brother, Brent Selleck, was a damn good tight end in this league for many years with the Eagles. And Garrett was more so of a blocking type that could catch it. And I see Luke Farrell, they were both 6'5", 250, Both had similar speed. Both had really good hands, but, not a guy you're really dying to get the football in their hands. So, you fall asleep behind the wheel, Luke Farrell can hurt you in the pass game, but if you put a guy on him to cover him one-on-one and that guy has any kind of athleticism, he should be able to stay in the hip pocket of Luke Farrell. Where he's going to make his money and stay in this league is as a blocker. So in the 5th round, 145th pick overall, tight end Luke Farrell for me is a 2. And that takes us to, and he's a 4.82 guy, 22 reps of 2 1/4, 4.82 guy. Again, not going to blow you away with athleticism and speed, but he can catch the football. I think he has really good hands. And I think he's a guy that, again, you throw a bone to every now and again, and he can get out there and catch the football. I'm not trying to make you seem like this guy's a stiff, but he's not the kind of guy that changes the game at the tight end position. Finally, you go to the Jacksonville Jaguars' last pick in this draft, their 9th and final selection in the 6th round, 209th pick overall, wide receiver out of Georgia Tech. Jalen Camp is the selection, 6'2", 226. Stands Jalen Camp. He's a big physical specimen, the kind of guy that you just say height, weight, speed. That's the first thing you say. And you know what I say at the back end of the draft, whether it's the 6th or the 7th round. I told you, anywhere 5th round or later, these are the rounds where you start to take the guys that look like Jalen Camp. Guys with limited to no production, but there's upside because he's a height, weight, speed specimen. I told you there are 3 types of players that you take a flyer on 5th round or later. The height, weight, speed specimen with limited to no production, the injury risk / medical flags guy / red flag guy with, some off the field issues, but he's a supremely gifted athlete or talent. And then number 3 is the guy that just made a position switch. The guy that just made a switch from corner to receiver or receiver to corner, or safety to tight end, or tight end to tackle, or tackle to tight end, and he needs more time to develop. Those are the guys you're looking to snatch up late and work with. They may not make your team. They may ultimately be on your practice squad, but you want to work with them for a year or two, see what you can get out of these guys. Jalen Camp strikes me as that kind of guy. He's extremely raw. Man, is he raw as the day is long. But at 6'2", 226, running a 4.43 with 30 reps of 2 1/4 and a 40-inch vertical, you want to work with those types of players. A guy that's 6'2", damn near 230, but running a 4.43. Yeah, I can work with that. With a 40-inch vertical, with 30 reps of 2 1/4, I can work with that. Let me get my hands on this guy and see if I can't convert him into a problem at the next level. He looks like A.J. Brown. He's just not A.J. Brown. And so you're hoping you can transform him into something like A.J. Brown. Here's the problem. He's raw as a route runner. He's stiff. He runs upright, straight up and down. There's no bend to his run. There's a lot of tightness with Jalen Camp. That said, his hands are fantastic. They're strong. Once his hands get on the football, they're like clamps. So there's a lot of contested catches you see on film that he comes down with. But the reason that he's in these tough contested catch situations is because he runs such poor routes. And he's telling guys when he's coming out of breaks. Like, he keeps peeking back for the ball, so they know, okay, he's about to break this thing off. Let me start to jump this. And that's why everything with him seems contested. Now, not a lot of production. And 38 games, 48 catches. Okay, so just a shade over a catch per game, essentially. Now, keep in mind, the first 2 years of his career at Georgia Tech, he's playing in that triple option offense, which is just awful for any wide receiver. Like, I don't even understand as a receiver why you would go to Georgia Tech to play receiver knowing that they run a triple option. But I think he was thinking about all the guys that came before him that played in that same triple option offense and turned out to be studs at the next level. Calvin Johnson, Demaryius Thomas, and Darren Waller, all from Georgia Tech's program. So he's thinking those were all guys that looked like me, big physical freaks of nature. They made it to the next level, and whether, Waller had to convert to tight end or Demaryius Thomas and Calvin Johnson had stellar careers, I see myself in that mold. And if I go to Georgia Tech, maybe I could have the same kind of success they had. Maybe that was a part of his thought process. I don't know. Bottom line is, he didn't get a lot of opportunities those first 2 years. Then they finally fired the coach and they changed their offense into a more open, modern, college football offense that actually pushes the football down the field. And he got hurt in 2019. He got hurt in the preseason, had a nagging injury, decided to have surgery. He only played in 5 games. So really, 2020 is the only season that you have with true film to assess Jalen Camp. And he had 29 catches for 439 yards and 4 touchdowns in that season. But it's not a huge sample size. So, look, the guy's big, the guy's fast, the guy's strong, and he can block in the run game. And there's a lot of things you like about Jalen Camp, but he's extremely stiff. He needs more refinery as a route runner. He needs more polish. But this is the kind of guy you want to work with in the 6th round. So I understand the selection. I really do. Because in a year or two, Jalen Camp could be a really good player for you. But right now, I don't see him really helping Jacksonville right out of the gate. But you got stuff at receiver anyway, so you should be fine between Laviska Shenault and DJ Chark and Colin Johnson, who you drafted last year. There's some stuff on the roster. You should be fine. I'm pretty sure in free agency, with all the guys you added, I think Marvin Jones was one of your big free agent acquisitions. That's a fantastic add to that offense. You should be fine at receiver. This guy's going to have a chance to mature. Anyhow, my player comp for him is Devin Thomas, another guy similar size that came into the league, looked like Tarzan. Unfortunately, Devin Thomas didn't necessarily play like Jane. He just wasn't willing to put in the work. He didn't love the game enough. That isn't necessarily Jalen Camp. I don't know this kid, but I know that his game looks a lot like Devin Thomas's game coming out of Michigan State back in 2008 when he was a 2nd-round pick. So, and Devin Thomas ended up having a very lackluster NFL career. If he doesn't put in the work to become better, he'll end up like Devin Thomas, out of the league relatively quickly. So we'll see what happens with Jalen Camp, but he's got all the physical tools to be around, and I think this guy is willing to put in the work. His dad owns a gym, and he worked tirelessly on his body to be in a position where he's at to get drafted because, again, not a lot of tape, not a lot of production for Jalen Camp. So he worked tirelessly to put himself in a position to get drafted. That he did. Now he's got to take advantage of this opportunity and try to stay in the league. But in the 6th round, 209th pick overall, wide receiver Jalen Camp for me is a 2 to round out this Jacksonville Jaguars draft. So let's take a look at this draft as a whole and tally up their final score. So 9 picks in all for Jacksonville. In the 1st round, they took 2 players, both from Clemson, in Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. Both were 5s. In the 2nd round, they had 2 picks there as well. Cornerback Tyson Campbell out of Georgia, a 4, and Walker Little, offensive tackle out of Stanford. He was a 4 as well. You get to the 3rd round, Andre Cisco, safety out of Syracuse, is a 3. So is Jay Tufele, defensive lineman out of USC, who was picked in the 4th round. So was Jordan Smith, picked in the 4th round, edge rusher out of UAB. And then your final 2 picks of the draft, Luke Farrell in the 5th, Jalen Camp in the 6th. Farrell, a tight end out of Ohio State, he's a 2. And Camp, a wide receiver out of Georgia Tech, he is also a 2. That totals to a 31. You divide by the 9 selections made by Jacksonville. It's a 3.44 draft. Very impressive draft, if I may say so myself, for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, and the draft wrap-up of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Fantastic first draft for Trent Baalke and Urban Meyer. Baalke did a lot of damage in San Francisco when they were at their peak of their superpowers in the early 2010s. And so he has his fingerprints along with Herb all over this draft, and this is an impressive haul. I wouldn't be shocked, I'm just going to say this, if Jacksonville made noise in year 1. With Urban Meyer coming in, a breath of fresh air from the college ranks with a different spin on offense, I wouldn't be shocked if they came in with all the athletes that they've added to this football team and all the athletes that were already there before he got there. I wouldn't be shocked if they scored a bunch of points this year. Now, can they stop teams from scoring? That's the question. I wouldn't be shocked if they came in and scored a bunch of points this year and gave teams fits offensively, and we're still trying to figure it out defensively, but won some games you didn't think they were going to win. I'm not saying, I'm just saying we'll see what happens with Jacksonville, but that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. Get off the bench, get in the game, and kick it with me, your man Louie T, as we continue to run through every single team in the National Football League's 2021 NFL Draft here on the Draft Wrap-Up Series. Until next time, you guys have a good one.
LouieTeeNetwork.